as a terminal illness. We don't talk about it that way anymore. Half of all people diagnosed with cancer will live to die of something else. So cancer has become a chronic illness rather than a terminal illness, one you have to live with, but not one that's going to kill you right away. Our modern healthcare systems are largely designed to help people with acute medical problems, with a heart attack, with a broken arm, with a bowel obstruction. We know how to do that very well. We are less well prepared to deal with the problems that come with chronic illness, like pain, anxiety, and depression. And studies have shown, this is from the Kaiser Foundation, that the majority of people who seek what we call complementary or alternative medicine, it's about 40% of Americans, I think it's 80% of Filipinos, seek complementary or alternative medicine often before going to mainstream medical care for problems like chronic pain and anxiety, which in fact are not handled as well in mainstream medicine. So we need to find new ways of dealing with the stressors that come with life-threatening illness. As I mentioned, 42% of Americans seek alternative medicine. Half of our cancer patients do. And the real problem is that most of them don't tell their doctors what they're doing, and that's a problem because there can be complications from the herbal treatments that they're taking that can interfere with the medications the doctors are prescribing. So one of the things that I've been working toward for decades is to try to bring these two camps together, to learn what we can learn from the alternative medicine world, from what traditional healers are doing, and test it scientifically and see what works and what doesn't, so that we can bring it, when it belongs, into mainstream medicine. And this is a chart that shows that Americans made more visits to alternative care practitioners than they did to primary care doctors. So it isn't just the Philippines where people go to healers. I was hearing the other day that people often go to spiritualists if they think that they're possessed by a demon or something like that, and they have some kind of a ceremony, and supposedly the spirit is supposed to go away. And I was reminded that what happens if you don't pay him is that you get repossessed. You have to be. Americans spend more out of pocket on alternative medical care than they do on mainstream medical care. So it's a huge medical industry as well, and I'm sure that's the case here too. So there's something we have to understand better and take seriously. He's saying, I'm sorry, Mr. McConnell, your insurance plan only pays for sympathetic nodding and a saddened downward glance. There's a $200 copay for any additional words of compassion, not to exceed 40 words or 3 expressions of sympathy or condolence. We have wonderful medical care in the United States. We have a problem with our health insurance system, which is interfering more than helping. And so one of the things that is in the oldest and best tradition of medicine is continuity of care and concern from a doctor, and our insurance system is not making that any easier. We've developed 10 years ago at Stanford a Center for Integrative Medicine, where we try to employ those techniques that work well. We've been open for 10 years. We've had some 50,000 visits during that time, and we're glad to offer a model of how to integrate alternative with mainstream medical care. The kind of problems we deal with are chronic pain, anxiety, fatigue, helping people stop smoking. There are many of these health-related problems that we can do a lot about. So we have physicians, psychologists, massage therapists, acupuncturists. We have classes in mindfulness-based stress reduction. And we welcome any of you who come to California to visit and partake of our services. Here are the standard care patients. These are the ones who had the friendly nurse with them. And I was afraid that the hypnosis patients were dead because they had no anxiety at all. They were feeling just fine. But in fact, they were just calming themselves. There were fewer complications in the hypnosis group, fewer serious medical problems during it. And perhaps the most striking thing was that it took 17 minutes less time, 67 versus 78 minutes, to do the procedures. So they actually got through more quickly with less pain and less anxiety. So techniques like hypnosis can be extremely helpful in allowing people to manage their pain and their distress better. This is my daughter's description of what I do. She said, my dad hypnotizes people and makes them want to live longer. And you see a particularly successful clinical example here of someone who did very well with hypnosis. She, as Dr. Solar mentioned, she's now 24 and working as a policy analyst in Uganda. She said, are you still using that drawing? And I say, yes, I am, but I have to tell you that it does not represent her current level of artistic ability. So we studied how we could help children get through painful medical procedures. And this is a procedure that I won't bore you with, but basically the child has to have a catheter inserted into their bladder. And so if you're an 8-year-old girl, it's a very stressful procedure, and there would be physical struggles trying to get the child to lie still. It's a very painful and unpleasant thing, and it has to be done once a year to see whether or not surgery is necessary. So what I did was I met the child and the mother the week before and said, you know what, we're going to play a trick on your doctors. Your body has to be there, but you don't. So why don't you decide where you'd rather be? So the child would imagine going to Disneyland, going to play with some friends, and the mother and I would engage the child in a hypnosis exercise in which they just imagined they were somewhere else. And when we did that, we found that there was less crying during the procedure, there was less distress during the procedure. The technicians who did it said it was half as difficult to perform the procedure, and again, it took 17 minutes less time to do the procedure. So helping people deal with their stress in this way can be an extremely useful experience. One other thing we use hypnosis for is to help people stop smoking. This is the smoking gun. It is a terrible tragedy that the tobacco industry has now targeted Asia and Africa as their two major growth areas. They've kind of given up on the United States because there are huge new markets. They're trying to make it fashionable and acceptable for women to smoke. It used to be that lung cancer was so rare among women that it was a reportable case. And now lung cancer in the United States is killing more women than breast cancer. And it's all because of smoking. Now, you can't tell somebody who smokes, don't smoke. It's like telling them don't think about purple elephants. But we do teach them self-hypnosis. We teach them to focus on protecting their body, on thinking of their body as if it were a trusting, innocent child that had to take into it anything they put into it, even if it were damaged by it. And to think of themselves not as stopping themselves from smoking, but protecting their body from the poison of smoking. And what we find when we teach people to do self-hypnosis for this, half will stop right away, half of them will not have a cigarette in 2 years. So that's not bad. We get 1 out of 4 people after a single session of self-hypnosis. She's saying chicken soup aisle 4, alternative medicine. We tend to think of chicken soup as alternative medicine. So we could, if you'd like, try a little self-hypnosis exercise. Would some of you like to see what it's like to do self-hypnosis? If any of you, is that okay, Father? Or we can. If for any of you who don't want to do it, just sit there and watch what happens to the other people. And it'll be a very simple experience, and I'll make sure we get everybody back at the end, all right? So get as comfortable as you can. Now first look straight ahead, and then look up to the top of your head, high as you can, all the way up. And as you look up, slowly close your eyes. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let the breath out. Let your eyes relax, but keep them closed, and let your body float. Try to get the sense of your whole body floating down, floating into the chair. And as you concentrate on your body floating into the chair, imagine that you're floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or just floating in space. Each breath deeper and easier. Body floating in a bath, a lake, a hot tub, or floating in space. Feel that pleasant sense of floating. And if you have some discomfort in your body, imagine that that part of your body is changing temperature, that it's becoming cooler or warmer or tingling, and let that new sensation filter the hurt out of the pain. Filter the hurt out of the pain. Each breath deeper and easier, your body lighter and lighter. And now please picture in your mind's eye an imaginary screen. It could be a movie screen or a TV screen or a computer screen or a piece of clear blue sky. And first picture on it a pleasant scene, somewhere you enjoy being. Now notice how your body is feeling. Notice how quickly and easily you can use your store of memories and fantasies to help yourself and your body feel better. Now please divide the screen in half, and on the left side of the screen picture one thing that has caused you stress today, but with the rule that no matter what you see on the screen, you keep your body floating, safe and comfortable, each breath deeper and easier. And now use the right side of the screen as your problem-solving screen to brainstorm a way of dealing with the stressor on the left. It doesn't have to be the best way or the only way, but just a new way of dealing with what's troubling you on the left. Again, your body is floating, safe and comfortable. Problem on the left, possible solution on the right. Each breath deeper and easier. Now take a few moments to reflect on what this feels like to you in a private sense. And then when you're ready, bring yourself out of the state of self-hypnosis by counting backwards from 3 to 1. On 3, you'll get ready. On 2, with your eyelids closed, roll up your eyes and 1 open. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay. Everybody back with us here? I don't see anybody floating near the ceiling, which is a good thing. How many of you think you were hypnotized? Just raise your hand. I see a few hands going up. How many are convinced you were not hypnotized? How many are still hypnotized? Does anybody have any comment about the experience? Anything surprising happen? You were falling asleep. Well, that was during my talk, actually. No, but it's an interesting point. Some people, particularly who are sleep deprived, will go to sleep, but hypnosis is not sleep. Hypnosis is actually waking up. It's focusing your attention. It's not sleep. Any other? Yes, sir. Less pain in your butt. Good. I'm glad to hear that. What sensation did you substitute for the pain? Floating. There he was just, I noticed you were a couple inches off the chair, actually. Yes. Yeah. Right. Interesting. Were you able to see the thing that made you anxious from a different point of view? Did it change the way you thought of it? Good. Yes. Thank you. That's a very important observation, that she said she was looking at something that made her anxious this morning, but she was able to see it and not feel so anxious and feel more calm. And that's a way of getting a different perspective on whatever is making you anxious, because part of what makes this kind of vicious cycle of anxiety is you think about something, you feel terrible,